Radio Talk Online with your host, Melanie Fine.
This is Melanie Fine at Radio Talk Online. Today we're talking with John Reagan of Power Brokers International. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Melanie. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for being on the show. I wanted to first ask you to tell us a little bit about your real estate business, Power Brokers International.
Well, it's a little boutique business, and we specialize in mid to high-end properties in the Coachella Valley. We also do sell properties in all of Southern California. I have a couple listings in LA County, and we're working in Orange County as well. So it's fun. We have a unique way of doing business.
Excellent. And how did you get started in this business?
Real estate was a natural transition for me. I was in the automobile business for about 25 years of my life. I was a general sales manager. My last job I was running 3 different new car franchises simultaneously and had about 200 employees. But I just didn't find that day-to-day grind very rewarding like I do real estate. I can't wait to get up in the morning, and I can't put it down at night. So I really enjoy it.
Really, what do you find the biggest difference between a home buyer and a car buyer?
That's a great question, and to be honest with you, the differences aren't much. But I think it's more timing than anything. I shouldn't say nobody. Almost nobody buys a home the same day they go out the first time, whereas in a car purchase, most people will buy within a couple of days of their initial start. So I guess it's a little bit more of a process. That's the main difference.
And you like the length of the process in real estate more than in the car buyership?
Well, you get a little more intimately acquainted with the people. You're spending more time with them. Get the ins and outs of their lives and their personal situation. So it's still people and helping people, though. It's really simple if you just break it down to that. It's all about a conversation with a couple of adults.
And what is it that when people come to see you in real estate, generally are they looking for? You focus more on the selling aspect, and your wife focuses on the buyer aspect. What are people really looking for when they see you? I guess as far as the selling aspect, are people moving out of the desert more, or are they just looking to?
It's a combination of things, but I notice, especially with now the new dynamic market we're in, the seller's market, people are looking that were sitting on their homes during the downturn are now wanting to go ahead and liquidate the home. Maybe they had to sit on a few extra years. So that's probably my main client, I would say, is someone that's actually liquidating a property because they bought a second home or third or fourth home out here in the desert. And occasionally, people are just looking to move up before the prices get too out of reach for them. And the last one is the people wanting to get in here, before the prices get too high. There's a little bit of urgency, I feel that, on the buyer's side. And the sellers, they're just looking to have professional representation, be treated fairly, and if you can do those types of things, I think you're going to be successful in this market. Right.
So the inventory is increasing of people who have been sitting on their properties waiting for the market to turn.
Yeah, I feel a little uptick this last 60 days or so. Here we are in August. It's summertime. And it's interesting. A lot of people, they don't want to put their homes on the market in the summer. I only took 3 listings last week alone. And what I'm telling people is the truth. The sales are off during the summer in the desert due to the heat. But they're only off about 10%, whereas the inventory drops between 30 and 40%. A lot of agents have this mindset where you're not going to be successful in the summer. Well, that's true if you make it true, or it's the opposite if you want to put a little effort out there. And I canceled my vacation this year. I was going to take off in August and have a couple of weeks up in Oregon, but we decided that it's just too much business out there, so we're going to hold off and maybe take an end of the year break instead.
Now, I was talking to a mortgage broker the other day, and they said there was a significant increase in mortgage rates, over the past 6 weeks. Have you felt that? Have you felt the effect of that in what you're doing?
The effect in my world has been an increased sense of urgency. the rates are still so incredibly low. And I don't know how old you are. I'm 45, going to be 46 this year. I don't think we're going to see rates this low again in our lifetimes. These are
Really?
1950s rates, for example. And I just don't think they're going to come back. And once these go back up to the 6, 7, 8% again, I just don't see, in my opinion, that coming back down again. Not if it took so long to get this low.
Right. So that this very short-term increase is just telling people that it's not going to be here for long. Get in now.
Yeah, make the decision. If you're on the fence, get off. What more can you possibly hope for? Prices are going nowhere but up. Interest rates are going to start creeping up as the government becomes more comfortable with our economy. They're going to tighten up the Fed, and we're going to have an interest rate increase, probably like we've had, modest but a steady increase. So if someone's out there considering buying a property, they should get in the market now. It's only going to cost them money if they don't.
Yesterday, the president went on record as I guess Congress that the government wants to get out of the home loan business. How do you think that's going to affect the market?
Well, his comments are actually interesting. Considering this administration's view on governments enjoying to have their hand in a lot of things, it's surprising to hear that. And actually, I welcome it. I don't know that it'll actually come to pass. That's the downside of that. Yeah, it could be some more government talk, but I don't know if the Congress will take the action or not. I don't know. I think if it did come to pass, the market will always take care of itself. With what little is happening in Washington these days, I can't see that happening. But who knows?
You can't see Congress making any move either way.
No. Nothing controversial.
Right. But you think the market's fine on its own? It doesn't need the government's backing of these loans?
I think that's the case in any market, whether it be real estate or any other private sector business. Less government is always better for the consumer, better for the business, etc. It's a free market. It takes care of itself. I mean, it makes or breaks itself without government. Government only slows things down, and that's my view.
Interesting. So what do you think if the government did step out entirely, do you think that would cause an increase in inventory or decrease or more people buying? Any thoughts about that?
Initially, there could be some pause, and I would expect maybe a slight, moment. What are we going to do? Before the capitalists in the world figure it out, hey, we can make some money here.
Right.
And, again, free markets will always do better with less restraint. It needed some government supervision, obviously, but you gotta have the less intrusive government for a very successful capitalist society. Right.
Now, in the desert area, the inventory seems to, well, I shouldn't say the inventory, but the buyers seem to be many. What percentage do you think are second or third or fourth home buyers as opposed to primary buyers, first home buyers?
My experience has been very high. In other words, I'd say 3/4 of the buyers I've experienced or dealt with, this is a second home for them. At least second home.
At least a second home, if not more. So we're dealing with probably an affluent buying community.
Yes, we are an affluent community overall. The buyers here and the owners here, the people who are selling here are all here because they can be. And, people with choices tend to be affluent by nature.
Right. And do you think, does that lengthen the buying process? Does that make the buying less urgent, more urgent? I mean, do they come here on a vacation and realize before they leave they need to buy, or how does that work?
It's all over the map. I've had it happen. I've had people from Canada come here for their very first time and buy a home before they left, with no intention of buying prior to getting here.
Which is sort of like buying a car.
Yeah, almost an impulse purchase. I mean, they come down here and they see our weather. If they come down here in the winter time, it's so beautiful here that they just fall in love. And especially the last few years when prices are still, and even now, are still so darn low that people are, going, gosh, I can afford this. It's not like Los Angeles or Orange County prices. This is really reasonable. So that's what we're seeing.
Do you ever? It's interesting that you say that because it is so reasonable to live here, and so when the Los Angeles and Orange County population, I mean, they definitely come here to vacation. Do you ever foresee a time when we might be competitive with those prices, where prices will go up significantly?
Well, any market, it's about supply and demand. And if our demand continues to increase and our supply continues to decrease, I could see that possibly happening, but I just don't know that we'll ever be, per capita the same as Orange County or Los Angeles. But you never know. You just never know.
I guess we still have so much so much land to build on that our supply can be endless for a time until we need. I think one of the things that Los Angeles and Orange County have are probably far fewer vacant lots to build new homes on.
That's true, and they also have a much more restrictive permitting process. It takes a lot longer in other counties to build than it does here, so that would obviously slow the growth. And you're right, they're pretty much built out in LA. Orange County got some land left, but not like we do.
Now, foreclosures and short sales, are they becoming less a percentage of the market?
Much less.
Much less.
I did not deal with short sales by choice. To me, it's fool's gold. Less than 5% of those ever close escrow, so it's not a good use of my time. I'm too busy for it. Bank loans always a good deal if you can get them, but even the banks are pricing much more to market and more aggressively now. So now we will be seeing some of those bank loans come back on market. I don't know if you're aware of this. There's a large shadow inventory of bank-owned property that's been either rented out or is just sitting, that could still come on market at some point.
And bank-owned are the foreclosures, not the short sales, correct?
Yeah. A short sale is still owned by the owner. They're just in the middle of losing their home.
Right. So
bank-owned has gone through the foreclosure process.
So the bank, you say, is holding on to a number of properties, and it will when they release them. Are they also waiting for a stronger uptick, or?
Well, their original plan was to do what they did, which was shrink the inventory to the levels where the market was stimulated, and that's happened. And as they're starting to trickle some of these out even now, but some of them were committed to renters, so they're leased up for a year or 2 years. They got in the rental business,
right?
And some of them are sitting empty, but I think asset managers, are trying to get them off the books, and that's always their goal. Banks don't make good homeowners. Right.
It doesn't pay them any money, and
no.
But you think they're drip feeding them on the market so that they don't have a flood of inventory.
Yeah, I don't think it's a conspiracy or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but I think they're being a lot smarter than they were. They're not just dumping them on the market and hoping they get something for them. I think they're being much more strategic about it.
This is very interesting. So, tell me, why would a buyer or seller want to seek you out, John, other than another realtor in the area?
Well, we have excellent results and excellent track records. Our numbers are phenomenal. We sell 8 out of 10 listings within 60 days, and 9 out of 10 within 120 days. That's about double what the average here in the desert for a typical agent is. The other thing is I have systems in place for everything we do. It's not that I'm so wonderful or so great. I'm very organized and efficient, and I work this job. I take it very seriously. My day starts at 5 a.m. and ends about 10 o'clock at night. Most realtors don't put in those kind of hours, and there's plenty of excellent realtors out there in this desert, but there are only a few of us really producing, and so those of us who produce, we're not too hard to find. And I think that people who have an experience with one of us will see a huge difference versus someone who touches 1 or 2 deals a year. This month alone, I have 6 escrows closing. So it's a different kind of volume.
That's fabulous. You bring up an interesting point. I wasn't thinking about this, but what kind of questions could someone ask a potential realtor to be able to distinguish between the ones producing and the ones who are more hobbyists or aren't producing?
I would ask them a series of simple questions. For example, how many homes did you list and sell last year? How many homes did you list and sell last quarter? In a typical year, how many homes transactions do you participate in? You know, if the answers are onesie, twosies, threes, you might want to interview another agent. And I'm not saying that someone who sells a small volume doesn't do a good job. I'm just saying that there's a reason some of us sell 30, 60, 90, 100 homes or more a year. It's because we get the job done, and we have the systems in place to do things like that. For example, if I take a listing, I have a checklist, and it's ran through, and it's just meticulously followed. We have a staff for everything. You know, I'm not overly hands-on once things are under contract. I have a transaction coordinator that handles all of my paperwork flow. I mean, you could go blind. Just to write an offer is about 30 pages of paperwork. And once it's accepted, that doubles immediately before you even get to escrow. So, I mean, there's just so much coming at you that if you don't have systems and don't have people to help you, you'll go underwater so fast you won't be able to do volume.
Right. You won't be able to grow your business because you'll be trading hours for dollars.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So in your checklist, I mean, obviously you have delegated so much, but I imagine, because I've seen some people's homes on the market for a year or so because they want a certain price that the market's not going to give them right now. I imagine you would definitely either not take the listing if it's, you know, if or be able to counsel the seller well enough.
Great question. And no, I would most likely, if the seller is not willing to price a home at a price that the market will bear, then it's not a listing for me. I don't want a listing that's going to just sit and collect dust. There's no point in that. It costs me money. It costs me time, costs the seller emotional stress. It's not good. And any agent who just takes a number that the seller gives them and lists a property has not done their seller justice. They're not doing a good job. They need to be aware of what the market is doing in that particular subdivision at any particular time, or just don't take the listing. It's just not good business.
Right. So it's interesting because either way, I mean, I guess you could get that one buyer that just falls in love with that house and has to have it regardless. But more often than not, you end up burned because you end up not being a successful realtor. You're not moving the property, and you don't have buyers, and the seller's unhappy.
Nobody's happy when a property doesn't sell. The most friendly, happy seller you can turn into a complete angry person if you don't deliver for them. So you've got to be realistic in your expectations, and with yourself and with your seller and with the market. Remember, we don't set the prices as agents. The market does. And that's, as long as we keep our egos out of the equation, we'll do just fine. The market is very clear on what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. If we underprice a property, guess what? We're going to get multiple offers. If we overprice a property, guess what? We're not going to get any offers. And if we're right at market, it'll sell. So the market's very smart, smarter than I'll ever be. So we just listen to it, and it'll dictate what happens.
Right, and if you want that higher price, then you may have to sit on your property until the market reaches that level.
Yeah, and there's no point in putting it out until you're ready to sell. If people are, one of the questions I ask sellers before I ever meet with them is, what is your motivation to sell? Well, if it's I'm just thinking about it, or I just kind of want to see what happens, I probably won't even meet with that client. There's no point. I want a person who really wants to sell their home to meet with me. That's one of the reasons we have such a good track record, is because we only deal with motivated sellers. Price, more than anything, will dictate the sale of your home. I can do everything in the world to market it, but if you are priced out of market, if a buyer does not perceive the value, you're not going to sell it.
Interesting. I mean, it makes so much common sense, and so many of us don't want to look at it, but I guess we, as you said, our egos or whatever get in the middle of it.
Yes.
Yeah, when the value meets the price that someone wants to pay, there's a transaction.
I have a saying that the price has to meet or exceed the buyer's value in the buyer's opinion. So if your property is at or better than market value, it's going to cause it to sell. If it's over market value, it'll cause it to linger, and that's just the reality of it. And hey, we all miss properties. I've had listings not sell because I overpriced, and it was not intentional, but the market's, changed its mind. That happens.
Right. Happens every day, I'm sure. This has been wonderful. You've provided such great information, John. Thank you for being on the show. If our listeners wanted to get in contact with you or find out more information about your company, how can they do that?
I answer my phone like 14 hours a day. I can be reached at area code 760-333-0333. Or if they just want to go to the website and poke around a little bit, it's PalmSpringsHomeDeals.com. PalmSpringsHomeDeals.com.
Great. And when I provide a link for this interview, I'll actually provide a link so that people can go straight to that. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful interview, and I've learned a lot about buying and selling.
Well, I appreciate it.
So thank you for being on the show.
Pleasure was mine. I appreciate it.